Rome breathed in heat and let out steam. Columns sweated in the night. The Thermae of Caracalla hummed like a furnace-fed beast. Somewhere under the marble, a door forgot how to stay closed. Gaius Marcellus kept to the service street. He was no longer a soldier, only a careful clerk with trained eyes. The urban prefect had sent him alone. Steel frightens, the man had said, but paper decides. Rumor ran ahead of him. 3 officials had vanished near the baths. Books of account had slipped from their shelves like startled fish. Coin left the treasury and never found its way home. The baths were a city within the city. Fires roared in brick bellies beneath the pavements. Slaves fed the mouths with olive wood and pitch. The air tasted of iron, salt, and ash. Gaius showed his writ to the night porter. The wax cracked with a tired sigh. Hypocaust first, he said, lowering his voice. Then the storerooms under the western hall. A narrow stair gave way to heat. It rose in slow sheets and settled on the skin. The bricks ticked and throbbed with the breath of the ovens. Voices carried oddly here, as if the walls remembered prayers. A rag lay where a bolt should be. Pig blood marked the cloth in careful lines. Gaius held it to the lamp, then folded it away. Not panic, he thought. Preparation. Beyond the furnace room stretched a blind corridor. Stokers called at the throat. Dust lay like stale flour on the arch. A narrow swath had been brushed aside by a steady hand. The first sign was cut at knee height. Not Roman numerals, but a little star cluster. The Pleiades, set into mortar with a nail. A waymark for those who knew the sky. Another mark waited at eye level. A torch and a dagger, twinned. Old soldiers told stories that came with those shapes. They spoke of a god who looked away and a bull that did not. A door of reused marble shifted under his palm. The hinge breathed like an old priest. The room beyond was not a room at all. It was a made cave, low roof, close walls, taut silence. A Mithraeum. The relief stood ready on the far wall. Mithras drove the blade into the bull while his eyes turned elsewhere. A dog and a serpent reached for the blood with quick tongues. Benches ran along both sides. Soot had kissed the vault until it wore a night sky. Lime stars pricked the dark in cheap constellations. A clay cup rested near a scatter of bread crumbs. Gaius knelt and read the dust. Nails had pressed a pattern in careful lines. Caligae, the soldiers' shoes, sang their song in stone. He counted pairs. Not many. Enough. He named the grades under his breath. Raven. Bridegroom. Soldier. Lion. Persian. Sunrunner. Father. 7 stations, as the old tales went. 7 oaths that bound the tongue. On the altar a coin caught the lamp and gave it back. Not common pay. A donative from a campaign in the east. The face upon it had been scraped away with slow hate. Damnatio Memoriae had bitten out the name. Only the laurel remained, and the curl of a cold mouth. Someone wanted the dead to stay dead. Someone feared what a memory could buy. Behind the altar waited a slit in the wall. Gaius slid his fingers into the black and felt cedar and leather. A tag dangled from a thong like a monk's habit. The script upon it was neat and ungenerous. A banker's hand. He read a date. He read a sum. The numbers lay too smooth, like stones in a thief's pocket. The missing ledgers had passed this way, small and quick. A step sounded in the outer dark. Not the shuffle of a slave. Not the careless heel of a guard. A measured tread that carried its own shadow. He pinched the lamp and let night fold over him. The painted stars seemed to shiver. The torch and the dagger on the wall stared without eyes. Breath slowed until it felt borrowed. The marble door eased open and held its breath. A figure entered, robed in pale linen. There was no smoke in that cloth, no sweat, no soot. Only the faint smell of cedar and ink. Gaius knew that scent. It lived in the halls of offices that never saw the sun. It lived on the fingers that moved laws like pieces on a board. The visitor was not a stoker. A ringed hand touched the altar with a small, proprietary grace. The signet blinked and went dark. The far wall pivoted with the stealth of a cat. A second passage showed a brief mouth of black and then forgot itself. Gaius did not move. He counted heartbeats inside his teeth and stored the number. The ring brushed stone as its owner passed back through. The wall closed, and the cave exhaled as if relieved. He coaxed the lamp to life. The flame steadied and drove the shadows into corners. The coin on the altar was gone. In its place lay a single cedar thread, new and fragrant. There were 2 caves now, though the world would only swear to one. One cave for bread and the quiet cut of oaths. Another that swallowed names and vomited figures into other mouths. The god faced forward. The bookkeeper stood behind him. Gaius pressed his ear to the brick. He heard water move with the patience of a hymn. A channel ran there, wide enough for truth to float face down. It would meet the Tiber without leaving tracks. He rose slowly. Above him the bathhouse coughed and settled. The night seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for a cue. He had found a cult, he could not yet see the man. But he had seen the ring. And he had smelled the ink. And he knew, with the certainty of a trained reader, that Rome's largest temple was not built of stone at all. It was built of records. By morning the baths had their voice again. Steam moved through arches. Vendors shouted at the gates. No one imagined what the stones had hidden. Gaius kept to the shade and read a scroll he did not trust. The ink looked young. The names looked tidy. The figures made a polite lie. He carried it to the prefect's office. The scribe at the door scratched lines that meant nothing. "Do not return to the Thermae," the prefect said without looking up. "It is now a religious matter." Gaius bowed to the air and left. Near the Forum he found Lucius Sabinus, a soldier turned lender. The man wore a scar and a clean tunic. His memory was sharper than either. "Mithras?" Lucius said, spitting to one side. "Officers love a dark room and an oath. Half of them swore in some cave. The other half kept the keys." "You know the marks?" Gaius asked. "I know the money," Lucius said. He handed over a wax tablet. "Read it later. Burn it." At dusk Gaius returned to the baths. He did not take the throat. He found a lifted grating under the frigidarium and slipped below. The air was damp and still, as if the world were holding water in its mouth. The tunnel bent twice and emptied into a narrow room. No reliefs. No stars. Only tally cuts, hundreds of them, marched across the stone. Accounts of men, reduced to scratches. "You came," a voice said. A figure stood in the arch. No linen hood now. A plain toga, the kind that says more by saying less. The face was ordinary, the eyes were not. "You saw the altar," he said. "And the cedar." "You left them," Gaius answered. "For someone who could read." The man stepped closer. His ring showed itself. No crest. One letter only. You are not a priest," Gaius said. "The cult is a curtain." "A useful one," the man agreed. "For moving things that prefer the dark." "Names," Gaius said. "And coin." "And memory," the man added, almost kindly. "That is the metal Rome spends without counting." He walked the small room with a careful pace. Some vanish by steel. Some by fire. Most by ink. Gaius kept his hands loose at his sides. "What do you want from me?" "To stop seeing like a clerk," the man said. And start seeing like a keeper. A second door opened behind a scene Gaius had not noticed. A younger man waited there with a torch and a short blade. He watched without blinking. The torch popped once and settled. "I will ask once," the man with the ring said. "Do you serve Rome, or do you serve the record?" "They are not the same," Gaius said. "They have not been the same for a long time." The man nodded as if he had expected that answer. "The record outlives Rome," he said. "It outlives you and me. Stand with it. You will be safe inside its shadow. And if I refuse? You will become a correction," he said. "Clean and painless. Like a line drawn through a name." Silence reached into the corners. Somewhere a drop counted time. Gaius looked at the tally marks on the walls. He heard ledgers turning in his head. "Who are you?" he asked. "A reader," the man said. "A writer, when I must be. And you already work for me." "I do not." "You do," the man said. "You came when I called." The cedar thread. The lifted grating. The clean dust. The hour. Gaius felt the room grow smaller. The torch creaked in the guard's hand. The tally cuts on the wall seemed to lean toward him, like reeds in a slow current. He chose a word and let it stand. "No." The guard took a step. Gaius did not run. He stepped toward the torch instead, as if to greet an old friend. The flame wavered, then steadied. "Not here," said the man with the ring, lifting 2 fingers. He sounded almost annoyed. "We keep this room for counting." He looked at Gaius. "Walk." They moved along the tunnel in a short procession. Gaius in front, the torch behind, the ring at his back like a small sun. They came to a brick choke where water murmured. A low grate waited there, black with silt. 2 roads, the man said. Up to air, with us. Or down to water, alone. He rested a hand on the stone, thoughtful. Gaius looked at the grate. A trickle darkened the mortar. He remembered the hymn of hidden channels behind the altar wall. He smelled the Tiber before he heard it. He turned his head. "I am a clerk," he said. "I sign my own way." He dropped his weight and kicked the grate. The torch jumped. The guard swore and lunged. Water burst through like a throat clearing itself. The tunnel coughed and spat. Gaius went with the flood. Cold hands took him like a debtor. Brick slid past, then darkness, then a bruise of light. He struck iron, slipped, struck stone, and lost the rest. When he woke he lay under a bridge arch. The river talked to itself. His body counted new pains and found them acceptable. He rolled, vomited river, and laughed once, without joy. The city above moved on with its business. Cries for figs and cheap wine. A wheel on a wet stone. A vendor calling lamps for the evening. Gaius crawled to the bank and sat until the world steadied. Then he rose. Not toward the baths. Toward the hill that held the old records. He needed paper. He needed names. He needed the one door in Rome that never slept. The door beneath the tabularium. They said he drowned. The river kept many secrets. Rome added one more line to its silence. Gaius climbed the hill instead. The tabularium faced the forum like a blind god. Under it, older rooms clung to the rock. Doors that no plan admitted. Locks that remembered hands long dead. He found a side stair chipped by sandaled heels. Moss cooled the stone. A rusted bar gave way under a careful twist. The air smelled of oil, dust, and old glue. Scroll bins rose in stacked ribs. Clay tags clicked softly as he passed. Mice had nibbled at a law of Tiberius. Mildew had argued with a census. He worked without a sound. A lamp cupped in his palm. Water dried on his tunic in salt maps. His breath learned the pace of the room. First he hunted seals. Purple for consuls, black for grain. One mark repeated where it should not. A letter pressed too cleanly, it was ink on receipts. Wax on temple grants. Lead on little bags of coin. Always the same hand, always not named. He traced the path with a stylus. Temples to treasuries. Shrines to estates. Baths to the river and back again. The Mithraeum was only the front. Behind it, a second book kept score. Men rose by vanishing others. Paper did the killing better than knives. He found a roster of repairs. Marble that never moved. Roofs that never leaked. Payments that walked out on clean sandals. A clerk's note had survived under a smear. 2 words only, idem redite. The same came back. Coin went out the door and returned by another name. He rested his hands on the desk. The lamp sighed. Outside, the forum fell to evening. The stone cooled around his bones. A sealed sheet waited in the wrong basket. Purple and black together. Someone important, read by someone afraid. He warmed the wax and lifted it whole. Inside lay a list no temple should own. Households, debts, and sons of veterans. Shops that owed favors. A schedule of initiations, with numbers instead of names. At the bottom, a signature scratched thin. Not a senator. Not a priest. Rubellius Rufus, questor once, reader forever. So the name had a body. And the body wore a ring. It moved funds with the ease of a priest's hand. It erased men more neatly than acid. Gaius pulled a board across the desk. He mapped what he knew. A line from the baths to the archive. A line from the archive to the Aerarium. He added the forum moneylender. He added 3 vanished officials. He added himself, in small letters, near the river. Then he put the stylus down. If he ran to the prefect, the story would fold. If he shouted to the crowds, it would feed them for a day and die. If he wrote a perfect report, it would be filed under fire. The machine did not fear truth. It hired it. He needed another kind of page. One that walked by itself. One that bit when handled. One that looked official and was not. He chose a clerk's hand from memory. An old style, tight and fussy. He practiced the tilt until it felt like someone else's wrist. Then he ground more ink. The decree wrote itself under his fingers. A routine audit of religious endowments. A pause on certain authorizations. A request for seals to be presented for inspection. Not a blade. Not an accusation. Just a small, clean wedge. Enough to stop a door for 1 hour. Enough to put a hand between the gears. He blew the ink dry. He set 2 ribbons across the roll. He borrowed a dead man's flourish for the end. And he smiled once, without warmth. Footsteps sounded in the stair. He doused the flame and tasted dark. Voices passed, counting sheets. A key scratched at a nearby lock and moved on. When he lit the lamp again, the decree lay plain. So did the map. He folded the first and hid the second. Then he took a breath he had not earned. He left by another stair. Night pooled in the forum like wine in a bowl. The Capitol breathed stone and old smoke. Somewhere, a ring tapped gently on marble. Gaius went the other way. He carried a quiet weapon in his sleeve. He would not stab the beast. He would make it choke on its own paper. The decree moved like a rumor. Clerks read it with tight mouths. Seals were fetched. Doors paused on their hinges. Gaius watched from a colonnade. He saw small frictions multiply. A courier turned back for a counter-seal. A chest stayed shut for want of a ribbon. By noon the Aerarium felt a size too small. Whispers pooled near the third vault. Someone had asked for the ring list. Someone had said no. Come, a voice said behind him. Rubellius stood in the shade. No guards. No stage. Only a white toga and a steady gaze. He walked as if the ground signed for him. They crossed a cool corridor. Bronze breathed on its shelves. Ink and vinegar stung the air. A lid closed gently somewhere out of sight. You write well, Rubellius said. Too well for a prefect's clerk. He touched the decree with one finger. Clean wedge. No blood. Gaius said nothing. He watched the man's hands instead. Scribes' hands, not soldiers. Trained to weigh, not to lift. Rubellius drew out a small tablet. It held 3 lines only. A name. A date. A place. Gaius read his own death by drowning. Rome buried you yesterday, Rubellius said. The river was kind. He set the tablet down like a coin. You cannot go back to your desk. So I join you. If you like breathing, Rubellius said mildly. You already think in ledgers. Come where ledgers rule. He opened a drawer. A ring lay on cloth the color of ash. No crest. 1 letter. R. We keep memory, he said. Not truth. Truth is a tenant. Memory owns the building. He held the ring as one holds a pen. Gaius did not take it. What is the fee? A proof, Rubellius said. A clean erasure. No corpses. Whom? Decimus Norbanus Flaccus, Rubellius said. A senator who believes marble is louder than paper. He smiled without warmth. Teach him the opposite. Gaius weighed the room. He counted the places a man could die of paperwork. He counted the places a man could live by it. The numbers matched too neatly. I accept the proof, he said. The ring can wait. Rubellius nodded once. He enjoyed patience as a sport. Begin with the census, he advised. Then the land rolls. Then the Senate lists. His eyes were kind and empty. Stone last. Stone always last. The door opened on its own tug. Heat slipped in from the forum. Somewhere below, a clerk swore at a broken seal. The city's breath hitched and went on. Rubellius turned away. Send nothing to prefects, he said over his shoulder. They eat paper and call it justice. He paused. Bring your work to me. Gaius stood alone a moment. He looked at the ring that was not his. He looked at the tablet that killed his former name. Then he left both where they lay. Outside, the light felt heavier. Vendors argued over figs. Pigeons traced slow circles above the rostra. On the hill, the archive kept its slow pulse. He walked toward the stonecutter's quarter. Chisels rang like small hammers on rain. A man wiped marble dust from his beard and squinted. Gaius asked the price of forgetting. Gaius began with paper. The census kept a kinder knife than most. He found the household of Decimus Norbanus Flaccus. Names sat in tidy rows, pretending to be roots. A scratch here, a splice there. Children became cousins. A wife turned into a niece with a softer dowry. The family thinned without losing a single breath. He moved to the land rolls. 3 villas wore the senator's name. One burned last winter in a lightning storm no one remembered. Another audited itself into a mortgage. The third changed hands at dusk. A freedman signed for it with a neat, invented hand. The seal looked tired but official. Gaius let it pass without meeting his eye. Senate lists came next. Clerks yawned and fetched boxes. A page loosened under steam and will. By nightfall, Norbanus stood on no committee. Stone took longer. A restorer in the Subura weighed chisel and silver. Revision by Senate order, Gaius said. The man grunted, then set iron to marble. A shrine still carried the senator's name. The letters were proud and deep. Gaius watched flakes fall like thin snow. Passers-by did not look up. At last he went to the man himself. Norbanus sat among figs and dust, feeding birds. His toga had learned the shape of his chair. He did not seem surprised. "You've come to kill me," he said. "No," Gaius answered. "To remove you." "Same thing," the old man smiled. They spoke without hurry. Gaius named the steps he had taken. Norbanus listened as if to a weather report. Then he pressed a scroll into Gaius's hands. "Keep this," he said. "After the aqueduct fire, I counted the coin that ran the other way. They buried it under marble and incense. Rubellius's name lay thin at the bottom." "Will you fight?" Gaius asked. "I have," the senator said. "Rome wins by forgetting." He scattered the last of the seed and watched the birds lift. That night the final bust cracked, from frost. Summer did not argue. In the morning, a boy swept the shards into a basket. By noon, the niche held a lamp. Gaius returned to his room and set the scroll beside his map. He copied it in a smaller hand. Then he copied it again. One for a friend who owed him silence, one for a stranger who loved noise. He did not send either. Not yet. He placed Rubellius's ring offer in the same drawer. And closed it softly, like a book that would open itself. Dawn found him at his table. Ink, lamp, a clean scrap of wax. He read the senator's scroll again. He let the figures settle like silt. He wrote a decree that asked for nothing violent. A simple pause on temple endowments. A call for seals to be shown. A request for ledgers to walk into the light. He forged no names. He borrowed a hand from a dead clerk. He used an old flourish that fools loved. He sealed it with a color that opened doors. Then he carried it into the stream. A messenger took it without looking. Another stamped it and moved on. Paper has the best legs in Rome. He did not wait for thunder. He went instead to the Mithraeum. Dust lay thin where feet had stood. The painted stars had begun to flake. He left a different scroll upon the altar. It was not a sermon. It was a path. Money runs straighter on paper than in pipes. It named the shrines that never mended roofs. It named the estates that drank from temple wells. It named the shops that smiled at closed books. It traced the ring in the ink it loved. By noon, small frictions multiplied. Gatekeepers asked to see seals. A chest stayed shut until a ribbon returned. Clerks muttered about hands they did not recognize. Rubellius sent for him at last. No ceremony. No guards. Only a room with stone walls and a table that remembered weight. "You learned quickly," Rubellius said. His voice was calm, like a ledger that balances. "You made a pause feel like a law." He touched the decree with a finger. "Neat work." Gaius set another scroll beside it. "The rest of the work is older," he said. "The line from baths to river. The line from archive to treasury." Rubellius did not glance down. He watched Gaius the way a reader watches a word that should not be there. "You will take the ring now," he said. "It is past time." Gaius looked at the ring. Plain gold. One letter. He thought of the throat, of water in a black grate. He thought of birds rising from a fig tree. "I will keep my own hand," he said. "Then you will keep nothing," Rubellius answered. "Memory removes those who refuse it." He lifted his palm, as if to erase a line in air. But the air was already moving. Couriers crossed the court like fish in a fast stream. A door asked for a counter seal and did not open. A clerk called for an old stamp that no one could find. Rubellius listened. A very small furrow touched his brow. A day's delay, he said. Nothing more. Gaius turned to the window slit. The hill gave him a thin cut of sky. Delay is the only blade I brought, he said. It cuts every hour. By evening the Aerarium began to cough. Ledgers asked for companions that no longer matched. Receipts found their twins gone to ash. Statues waited for names that had been moved to another shelf. At dusk he met Lucius by the river. A short exchange, no embraces. One scroll went into a cloak. One name into a pocket. Night walked them both back to the city. Lanterns swam in the streets. A mason covered an empty niche with a lamp. A doorkeeper locked a chest and prayed to the wrong god. In the dark, Rubellius came alone. No ring upon his hand now. He stood in the doorway like a man who has found the wrong house. He did not sit. You rewrote me, he said. He sounded tired. Gaius did not lie. I learned from the best. Rubellius smiled without joy. We curate memory. We do not destroy it. You curated yourself, Gaius said. I only showed the room another picture. The older man looked down at his fingers. They were scribe's fingers, clever and thin. They will forget me, he said. They will think someone else signed my laws. They already do, Gaius answered. It was easy to lend your hand to another name. Hands are generous when no one watches. Rome prefers clean endings. Rubellius nodded once. He understood. Men of the book learn fast when the book turns. He stepped back into the stairs' shallow dark. Keep the ring, Gaius said. I never wore it, Rubellius replied. The ring wore me. He left without sound. Morning brought no triumph. No crowd shouted. No door fell. But something had shifted its weight. Edicts came out with a new seal. Not a letter. A blank circle, heavy and mute. Silence for a crest. Clerks learned a smaller hand. Shrines learned honest roofs. The baths murmured as before. The river said nothing. Gaius kept his room in shadow. He slept near paper. He ate when ink allowed. He walked the hill when the lamps were few. He did not own Rome, nor wish to. He kept a ledger of debts that could not be paid. He marked, in a small neat hand, the names that should never be forgotten. And he kept one name off the page. In time, stories grew. A ghost in the archive. A man who found doors that drawings missed. A clerk who returned books that never left. He answered none of them. He learned the city's deeper rule. Truth is a visitor. Memory pays the rent. The baths breathed heat and steam. The cave kept its stars a little longer. Somewhere, a door remembered how to stay closed. And Rome moved on, none the wiser, a fraction cleaner. Thank you for watching, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next videos.